Hello fellow woodworkers and welcome to this week's edition of the Garage Workshop. This week we're going to be a battery charging station inside my drawer. Roll the intro. So in this week's video, I'm going to change my current battery charging system because, to be honest with you, I'm not happy with it. And if you saw last week's video, which you should see up here, I built a new drawer for my storage unit with the specific intention of putting my battery chargers in it. So having used this for a while now, there are really only 3 battery chargers that I tend to use, which is this one, which is for my Parkside hand drill, this DeWalt one, which powers my drill, and this Ryobi one, which powers my impact driver and my nail gun. So these 3 ones are the key ones. Now, the bigger battery pack, the 20-volt battery pack at the back, I do use that, but to be honest, if I had to leave that out, I wouldn't be too distraught because I don't use that often enough. And also with this, when I created it, I didn't really create it well enough to A, keep these in, and B, to get the batteries out. And as you can see, it's a bit fiddly, particularly trying to get that battery out. So what I'd like to do is take the drawer that I made last week and see if I can construct something which works in a much more handy way for me. Now, I have got a slight advantage in the fact that the three Parkside chargers are roughly all the same height around the base. So if I did something where I put something over the top, that would be a lot easier. But of course, if I do that, then I've got to be very careful that I don't obscure the light. So the plan of action is to get these out, find a piece of wood, and again, I've got some wood with like pinholes in it, the one that I use for the bottom of the drawer, because I want to have ventilation as well. So I'm going to get some wood, see if I can find a way of reconfiguring those so that they can fit in the drawer. Now what I'll do is I'll hook the drawer out, and obviously we'll need to drill a hole. I'll need to drill a hole in the drawer so that I can run the cable out, the power cable out, which shouldn't be an issue. So the first thing to do, I'm actually going to take this whole unit apart because I've never really been that happy with it, and of course I need access to this plate. So let's take this apart now. So I wasn't too bothered about trying to save any of this wood, so I was a bit more aggressive taking this apart than I normally would be. So I just basically broke it down bit by bit and took all of the pieces off. I obviously salvaged all the screws, but to be honest with you, the wood was a bit too flimsy and a bit too far gone, so that'll probably go on the log burner, or the bits that aren't MDF anyway. So I took it all apart, and as you can see, I got that template out. I ended up not actually using that in the end when I thought I was going to, so it was a little bit easier. The next thing to do was to get a really accurate measurement of the inside of the box, which was really, really important because the piece of wood needed to be the right size. And I actually didn't go for the wood I thought I was going to here. Having got some of that pin wood out, it was far too flimsy. It would have needed sort of reconstructing or strengthening, and I didn't want to do that. So I just used a piece of 12mm plywood that I had actually from making the drawer. It's the same, so it's in keeping, it's even from the same sheet. Next thing I did was just lay out all the different chargers in different arrangements just to make sure that A, they would all fit, and B, I would have enough space to get the batteries in and out. Now, unbeknownst to me at this point, I'd already started to make a mistake because that the Ryobi charger you can see me drawing around then, I put it square, but of course didn't allow for the fact there's a massive battery overhang. So you'll see me attach it in a minute, but at the last moment when I was putting the drawer in, I just slightly rotated it just to allow for the battery to go in and out. So when I'd done that, I then produced a paper template. This was in order for me to get the accurate placement of the holes. A lot of these chargers had a sort of, you know, the holes where you can put it in and pull it and it sort of keeps it fixed. They didn't all have it, and for the ones that didn't, I just put screws in to sort of protrude up into the screw for the case, but these one did. So it was just a case of pre-drilling all the holes, which I did because I wanted to make absolutely sure that everything was fine and there was no splitting. So I just then went through the process of attaching each one in a go, in one after the other. Some of them are a little bit more tricky just because it's quite hard to actually get a screw to be completely upright, if you know what I mean. And obviously there had to be for this. So there was a little bit of fiddling with some of the screws, particularly with the work zone battery, but I got there in the end. Same with this DeWalt one, got there in the end. Each of these batteries holders, battery chargers, obviously all have an individual cable, so the cable management to me was quite important. So I had to leave enough room on the back of each of the chargers to be able to sensibly run the cable through, and later on in the video you'll see what I use for the cable management. So this was one of the batteries where literally the battery just sits on the screws, which I thought might have been a problem, but actually, to be honest, it really wasn't at all. So with all of them fixed in and everything on the board, I was then ready to create the shelf that it was going on. So to do this, I just marked up another piece of off-cut of plywood. This is a different bit. And I sort of drew a triangle shape. It was 7mm at the front and 11 at the back to give me a slant. And this was just to make sure that I could get both of the shelves, because I didn't put it in flat, I had it on an angle. So this was just to make sure that both of my sort of shelf brackets that you can see me cutting there were the right length. Next thing I did, I just pre-drilled them all and then I offered them up, and you can see I've rested it against the line there, and then I just pinned it in with 3 screws. You can also see the bottom of the drawer there with the pin board, which will help because it'll allow any of the heat if it builds up to get out. So when I did that, I offered up the drawer. You can see there I'd moved the Ryobi battery, offered up the drawer and just screwed it in. And I was very, very pleased that there was enough room for everything. The next thing that I did was just attach the extension lead onto the back. Actually, I did move it up because it was clashing with my drawer slides. And then I just put in the hole, and I drilled this from both sides to run the cables through. When I'd done that, it was just a case of putting all of the cables in, just sliding them through. There was a little bit of space, you'll see it in a minute when you get a sort of aerial view. There was a little bit of a gap at the end, and I was able to just sort of feed the excess or the slack cable down there. And as I say, I moved the extension lead up from when I offered it up and put it in to the actual unit. I then offered it up, and thankfully it all fitted perfectly, which I was really pleased about. Okay, so the project's finished. All the batteries are in the drawer, you can see here, and it's actually turned out really, really well. I'm very pleased with how it looks. If this is your first time at the Garage Workshop, please can I ask you to subscribe, like and comment. Apologies if you can hear the fireworks. If you're a regular viewer, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you on the next one. Have a great week, fellow woodworkers.